All right, everybody, we have a real problem going on and things are starting to get scary. The cost of gas, truckers are having problems delivering food to the grocery stores, and we are expecting, according to Fox News and some CEOs of different grocery store chains, we are expecting shortages and price increases to come both in the months of July and August. I was sent this information from a trucker who delivered it via a Facebook post. It says, "I need to get something off of my chest. I generally refrain from talking politics and especially making political posts. However, I need to say this. What I'm going to post is real, not somebody that's a friend, a cousin, a sister, a neighbor, or anything that's happening to them. I own a small trucking company, and I did a little bit of research and background on his background and was able to see that he does. And this is where the fuel crisis is going in our country. So this directly affects me," he says, "you, your children, and our country. Today, I filled up my truck to deliver products that help keep our country fed. When I filled them up, it cost me $1,149.50. That is for one truck," he says, "for 1 day of fuel. I own 3, so the 1 day of operation is costing me $3,448.50. Yes, we use a full tank of fuel every single day, sometimes more than one tank depending on the driving. My trucks generally run 5 to 6 days per week, so we'll just estimate on the low side and say 5. That's $17,242. Last week, it was over $20,000 for 1 week that I have to pay out of my pocket to try and not just keep my family fed, but my employees and our country. Mark my words," he says, "we are on a downhill slide to the worst recession, I note depression, that our country has ever seen. If you don't believe me," he says, "I implore you to do your own research. Trucking companies are going under left and right, literally hundreds per week." Now, when you think of trucking companies, you're not thinking of the big ones, the big ones that you see all over the United States of America. It doesn't take that to be a trucking company. It takes one guy in one truck, one guy in 3 trucks, 2 guys and 6 trucks, a small organization. And he's right, they are going bankrupt every single week. We're seeing these bankruptcies take place because they literally cannot afford to put fuel in their trucks and make it from a shipment from one place to another and then have a profit at the end of the week. And so they're saying, no, I'm going to sell my truck, I'm going to claim bankruptcy, and I'm going to go into another job. That's a real problem for you and me because we're going to see shortages take place across the entire USA. And if it's happening here, then it is happening literally everywhere. You're going to start to see these problems. And when these problems start to affect the American people in a way that they can no longer deny or avoid, that is when you're going to have riots. That's when you're going to have protests. That's when you're going to have people breaking into other people's homes for food. We're already seeing food theft increase across the USA at a corporate level. You have CEOs and theft management departments all warning that they're seeing 20, 30, sometimes 60, 90% increases in food theft. This is a massive crisis because when the thieves cannot get their food, and don't get me wrong, I'm kind of on the fence here. You have people who need to feed their family, and you have some people who have no options. And so they feel like their only option is to go out and take it from a corporation. What I mean by being on the fence is I'm glad they're not doing it yet from your home or from someone else's home. So we have a massive problem that is starting right now. And the real issue is that we're just at the very beginning. If you've been following this channel long enough, you know that we exercise our right to protect ourselves, to defend ourselves, and to prepare for unknown events or the things that we do know that are unraveling across our country and our world. And in that preparation, we have seen time and time again the things that are coming down the pipeline. We saw the COVID problems before they were ever mentioned on main news sites and organizations. We saw the lockdowns coming before it was ever mentioned, and we had people left and right saying that would never happen in America. We see the depression coming right now. We see the violence increasing. We see the lack of ability for policing to affect our social order. It's all over the place. And then you throw in the mix, world war, famine from crop shortages and crop failures, weaponizing of food and oil, an energy crisis. And we are looking at a catastrophe unlike anything we have ever seen before. Back to his note. Trucking companies are going under left and right. If you're not aware, what you are wearing, what you are eating, what you are living in, what you are driving, and what you are reading on was delivered by a truck. If something drastic doesn't change in the next few weeks or months, I promise you, you will see empty shelves everywhere that you look. You'll see chaos as people fight for the basic necessities of everyday life, food, medicine, etc. If something doesn't change, I pray that all of you have the ability, knowledge, and skills to fend for yourselves. Not only against those who would do your family harm, but to be able to sustainably find food and water. This is a scary time, not only for small business owners, he notes, but for every single American. So if you know a truck driver, he says, please tell them to hold on as long as they can. Our country will not survive without them. Let me know what you think about this revelation or this story down in the comments. Do you think that trucking and the price of this energy crisis, this oil crisis, this manufactured maybe oil crisis, do you think that that has a real effect on what we're going to see in the future as far as our availability of goods and the price of goods? Let me know what you're seeing. Continuing on this trend, gas prices, demand destruction, they say, is already here. Gasoline prices are at all-time highs, and this is starting to put a real dampening on the ability for Americans to purchase things. This is Yahoo Finance speaking to several economic strategists, getting their take on what we're seeing. Peter McNally, global sector lead for industrials, materials, and energy at Third Bridge, tells Yahoo that one could argue that demand destruction has already started. Since the start of March, U.S. gasoline consumption is 6% lower than the corresponding period pre-pandemic in 2019. Gasoline prices are pennies away. Now, actually, they're hitting the $5 per gallon nationwide average. 15 states are already seeing massive increases. The U.S. Energy Information Administration has been tracking a dip in gasoline demand compared with just 2021. According to the EIA, gasoline demand over the last 4 weeks is about 2.0% less than this time last year. As prices continue to rise, I expect that demand will continue to fall off compared to the year 2021. That's Andrew Lippo of Lippo Oil Associates. The higher prices at the pump correlate with higher costs everywhere. West Texas Intermediate crude futures were trading at $122 per barrel on Wednesday. We're seeing Brent trading at $123 plus per barrel. If we breach $125 per barrel in crude oil and stay there, consumers will be forced to change their behavior. That's Stuart Glickman, Deputy Research Director at Energy Equity Analyst, CFRA Research. High energy prices are impacting every single item of goods, including food. More money is spent on gas and food, leaving Americans with less money for distractionary and discretionary items. We are having people in our country right now make a decision whether they put gas in their car or food in their stomach. That is post-apocalyptic. That is a dystopian reality. And that is a disaster that we are living through today. So for any of the naysayers, for any of the, oh, it's so doom and gloomy, they can take their antidepressants until they're literally blue in the face and it's not going to change reality. We are seeing so much destruction across the country that we are lucky. And I count today as a blessing because people aren't literally shooting up the streets everywhere in mass. And this is a blessing that may be temporary. We're not guaranteed that we're going to have peace in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. And in fact, if you see the bulletin from DHS, if we hear the alerts that we're seeing from law enforcement organizations, we are going to have anything but peace in the next 6 to 12 months. So right now is the time to get ready for unrest and violence. You've seen a lot of discussion lately about the American government attempting to regulate your ability to defend yourself. And I asked a friend yesterday, I said, what did that stop the person in Berlin yesterday or within the last 36 hours who got into a vehicle and drove it into a crowd? Did Berlin's very strict firearm rules and laws stop them from getting into that multi-thousand-pound vehicle and driving it through a crowd of innocent people? No, it did not. And so what we're facing here is not a matter of safety or peace. It's a matter of control. Now, whether it's done viciously, vilely, or evilly, that I don't know. And that's up to each of our own discretion and maybe our own discernment. But what I do know is that we're witnessing a time of change. I was talking with another couple of friends who are very pro Second Amendment, and we were talking about what happens if they make rules on longer arms and if they make rules on high capacity longer arms. And so what is that going to mean? And I said, well, let me tell you something. If the American people do give up the existing tools that they have for self-defense, it doesn't matter what it is. If they give it up, that's the start. And it's going to end in the calling of hammers and knives and bats as illegal weapons of potentially mass destruction. And with that, you're going to see more and more control and change in the country. Now, my real concern here, my real fear, I'll say, is that the American people are at a point in time where they are literally fed up. And that's what happened during the riots over the course of the last 2 years. The American people became fed up and they just lashed out and acted out. And you had all sorts of people acting out and lashing out and all manners of life. So we are at that point right now where I'm sure you can see it. I know I can see it. The roads are emptier than they have been before. The stores, the shelves are emptier. The people are more unhappy than they have been before. And we're starting to see that unknown fear in people right now. And it's coming to the top. And they're starting to say, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I don't know where I'm going to live. I don't know if I'll have a job. I don't know how much money I'll have. I don't know if I can fill up the car. And that uncertainty brings fear because they what? They were not prepared for this. And because they weren't prepared for this reality to take place, they have no idea what to do. And so they lash out. So that's really my concern, is that as these control measures come down the pipeline, we're going to see a lashing out and a backlash against them that causes the entire country to go into a sort of state of chaos and state of emergency. And when and if that happens, you and your family need to get ready, even more so than you have before. So we have a lot of things taking place. High energy prices are driving virtually every cost up. When transportation costs go into the nosebleed territory, it drives up the cost of bringing goods to market. This is Glickman, who is speaking exactly what that truck driver said. This induces companies to pass those costs on to higher consumers or go bankrupt. My guess is that destruction would be concurrent, both for necessities like filling your tank and for those more discretionary items. The big concern is that higher energy prices are going to contribute to economic slowdowns as demand destruction kicks in. This is another individual saying if past practices are any guide, elevated oil prices induce a recession. So if high prices persist, then I see no reason why it's going to be different this time. The difference in 2022 is the impact of World War. Sanctions imposed by the United States of America and Europe on Moscow are sending uncertainty across the entire world. If Moscow doesn't reach a ceasefire and doesn't pull back, we're going to see real chaos. One strategist sees a dent in demand if the price of oil stays between the $120 and the $130 range. Indications are that the demand destruction really begins close to where we are at. For odds of a recession to pull forward into 2022 and beyond, we are going to see significant chaos and change here in the country. Now listen to this. I told you a couple of days ago that the police aren't going to come help you, and I want you to listen closely. Isabella County Sheriff's Office has announced that the department has exhausted its gasoline funds and will no longer be patrolling or going toward non-life-threatening calls. The Isabella County Sheriff's Office has issued a statement on their Facebook account saying that due to inflation, the department has exhausted its fuel funds. As a result, deputies have been instructed to manage non-life-threatening disputes by phone only. The statement goes on to say that deputies will continue to respond to calls with active suspects, and I want to assure the community that safety is our primary goal, and we will continue to respond to those types of calls, says the sheriff. Now, if anything over the course of the last couple of weeks on how response will act to active kinetic events, how response will act to active suspects, you know that the world has changed. This is your world right now, and you have to start to accept it and be prepared to help yourself. Wholesale retailers are warning that we're going to see price hikes, extreme price hikes in beverages and all of the supply chain by this summer. Inflation, they say, continues to soar nationwide. Wholesale retailers are warning that Americans should expect more shortages and more price hikes this summer. This is according to Boxed CEO, telling different organizations. I think this summer will bring beverages that you're going to start to see a kind of increased prices and shortages, just because already these factories are pumping it out at full capacity. You add in the increased demand, and we don't know where that's going to go. According to Wang, the supply of baby formula has been on and off within his company, and noted that product shortages took the wholesale industry by surprise. No, they didn't. That's an absolute lie right there. You see, at the top of the level, at the top of the world, where you have the most money and the people with the hedge funds and the wealth funds, they knew exactly what they were doing. The people who run industrial marketplaces knew exactly what was going to happen. If you and I can look and say, okay, 50 to 80% of our goods come from China, and hold on, the major area in China that they come from is locked down, we're going to see shortages. If you and I can see that, then every single living person can see that. But they choose not to. And so they either deluded themselves or they're outright lying to you. They say it's going to be spotty, with a lot of things on the shelves being empty. What we're seeing is that the consumer is in a difficult position right now, and a lot of folks are spending just on basic necessities, paycheck to paycheck or meal to meal. They need help. Inflation hasn't and won't abate. This is another article. We have a critical situation. I really think we have a problem for longer than 6 months. And once it hits, speaking of oil, once it hits those parabolic increases, markets are going to move, and we're going to see another spike in price. That's according to Jamie Weir, chief executive of Trafigura. He heads up one of the world's largest commodity traders. He's sounding the alarm bell, saying that a big problem is coming. Jamie Dimon, the CEO to JP Morgan and Chase, he said a hurricane was coming. If we see high energy prices for a period of time, we are going to see things get worse. It will be problematic to sustain these levels and continue global growth. Goldman Sachs said that oil is very likely to hit $140 a barrel. The S&P 500 sector up by around 66%, says that we're going to see, economists that are watching it say that we're going to see oil hit maybe 140, 160. I have another article here. This is a write-in. Hey, Brad, you provide great info and amazing advice. Keep fighting the good fight. I would like for you not to mention my name, but you don't need to keep my company secret, but I'm going to. I work for this organization. It's a large newspaper conglomerate, and we did fact check that. With the increase at gas pumps, this conglomerate has implemented new gas surcharges. I will attach some photos. I cannot email outside of the company, but what really gets me about all of this is that everybody, preppers, news anchors, economists, and now newspapers, are using August as a mile marker. Perhaps that's when we run out of gas. Perhaps that's when the big one takes place. What are your thoughts? You're absolutely right that we are seeing summer, late summer, being an indicator of harder times to come and a worsening of this economic, social, and political crisis. Now, what we see happen there, I'm unsure of, but I know if what we're seeing today is any indicator of what we're going to see in the future, you had better put your seatbelt on right now. And how you do that is getting ready to the fullest of your ability. Now, you're going to see in our community, as we get closer and closer to ground zero in this financial crisis, and less people have money to spend on their preps, and more money goes toward groceries, you're going to see a dampening, a lessening of the ability for the average individual to be able to buy or afford preps that are outside of maybe stocking up their food pantry. So if you have an ability right now, and it's not going to harm you financially, economically, or mentally, or physically, of course, then I would suggest you buy something that you know you are expecting to need. But I want you to look at that purchase, and I want you to say, if I buy this and I don't ever need it, Is it still a good purchase? If I buy this and in 3, 6 months, whatever, the lights don't go out, is it still a good purchase? Because we don't know how destructive this collapse is going to end up being. In our best case scenario, it's going to be like Venezuela. Lights are going to flicker. You're not going to have much access to food. Your money is going to be near worthless. But life will continue. Crime's going to increase. The police are going to be good for nothing. But life will continue. So when you make a purchase and you say, okay, I bought that bulletproof vest, was that still a good investment even though I never took a bullet? Yes, I would say so. If you're thinking about taking your whole house on solar and going into debt for it, then you have to make that call yourself. Water filters, solar battery backups, ammunition and self-defense tools, training. Think about first aid. If you know first aid and you never have to use it, you're lucky. But it wasn't a bad investment of your time or your money. So as we see that nearing to ground zero, I want you and your family to think soundly about your purchases and your training and what you're doing, and do the best that you can to broaden the effect of every purchase you make. You say, okay, if I'm going to get a whole house filter and I can afford to do it right now, and the water never shuts off, was it still a good purchase? In my opinion, yes, because that whole house filter, like the one we have, it takes out chlorine, it'll take out radiation, it takes out viruses, takes out it all using a blackened and cold charcoal coconut husk that's been packed so tightly that nothing can get through. So, and that's a gravity filter. So was that a good purchase? Yes. Ammunition, is that a good purchase even if I don't use it? I hope to God I don't have to use it. That's the best idea. That's the best case scenario ever, that I've bought something as an insurance policy in case of a threat on my life or my family's life, and I never have to use it. I never, ever, other than at the range, want to have to use a tool in self-defense of my life or someone else's. Am I prepared to protect life? Absolutely. But it's an insurance policy that I hope I never have to check on, call the check on. Hey, Brad, my name is Hal. I'm a former Marine Corps infantry vet and now a father and husband. I work in this area and live in the Midwest. My family members are still in the Air Force. I don't want to say where they are stationed or give their sex due to privacy concerns. I was called and they were shaking when they told me that I've been right. Gas, food, and products are running out. The base commander called all airmen and women to formation to say that they may be tasked this summer with distributing food and gas. This is unreal. Gas is supposed to be around $10 a gallon if we're lucky, and the base commander stated the same. He also told the airmen that there may be severe violence. Planes are moving constantly as well. I don't want to get into too much detail because as much as I love your channel, I also know that people who will use the information badly are listening. I'm telling you nothing new, however, but as a former Marine, the military doesn't tell low-grade enlisted anything unless it has to. Cheers to you, my friend. Stay safe and alert. Letter H. Thanks for sending that in. And of course, we have to take that validation with a grain of salt, but that's how you have to look at this information. Does it make sense? Absolutely. Is it a validation of what we're seeing? Yes. Is it maybe a smoke that you can look? If you see smoke at your campsite, you go, okay, that fire is not out yet. And so is this information from H smoke? Absolutely. And you have to make a decision. Am I going to bring the coals back to life in my own preps? Or am I going to put the fire out and pretend there's no fire there? Or am I going to ignore it, walk away, and let the forest catch? So this H's send-in is validation to me. More so because we're seeing it on verified and validated levels. And I appreciate his discretion and not wanting to give information because, honestly, I don't either. I don't want people to send in information beyond my ability to validate who they are. You don't have to send in your company. You don't have to send in, images that are specific that could get you in trouble. But I do appreciate the people who risk, their own economy to send in information to help others get ready. That's a personal sacrifice on risk, and the return on investment there, that risk investment, is that strangers they never know will be getting ready. Imagine that. We still have people in this world who care about strangers that they don't know and will never meet. But if you listen to the media, those strangers could be those evil Democrats or those repugnant Republicans. And they want to divide you even further every single day. But we still have people who don't care what religion a person is, what their skin color is, what their political motivation is, and they want them and their grandparents and their grandchildren to get ready. That's where we stand as a channel today. Work with each other, verify each other, validate each other. Look at where the world is going and get ready to the best of your ability. You have to start right now. If I told you to get ready 6 months ago, which I did, how much better off would you have been at the price increases that you're seeing today? The rent increases. Maybe you weren't affected yet by rent, interest rate, or gas payments. Maybe you haven't been really affected yet. But imagine the people who are getting ready, the survivors of this economic crisis, the survivors of the coming violence, who are getting ready right now that they just saw a $400 rent increase. They just saw a $200 total insurance increase. They just saw a $300 to $600 total grocery increase. Imagine if they had started getting ready, which many did 6 months ago, 8 months ago. That position that they started in allowed them to get prepared for what's coming next. Now, you and I have a choice to make right now. We can look at the world today and say, what do I have? What can I do? And we can do something. Training is free. YouTube is free. Camping is mostly free once you get your baseline or gear out of the way. You can do low budget anything. You want to get into something? Do low budget camping. Do 1880s camping. Do frontier camping. Go to Goodwill. It doesn't work with people. Borrow things. Help others. Barter. Unite. Because this world is getting worse. There's that old saying, right? United we stand. Divided we all fall down. And just like that disaster of a horrible child song that they sing, Ring Around the Rosie, about everybody falling down and dying. That's what we're doing right now. Everybody's taking a little trip on the Ring Around the Rosie. And everybody is about to fall down. Please get ready. Please watch what is happening. And I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to think about these things here with us. This is 30 minutes out of your day you have spent communing with people. I hope you're down in the comments answering others, talking with others, listing a question that you have. Think about it. 30 minutes out of your day. We have communed with each other. Strangers we will never, ever meet. We might have helped one person. We might have gotten help from another. Make sure if you've gotten help, you come back and say thanks to that person. That's how we unite. Because united, we will stand forever. Please, everyone, subscribe to us here at Full Spectrum Survival. Click that bell alert so that you get alerted every time a new video comes out. Stay safe and keep watch. This week's Full Spectrum News is brought to us by you, all of our members on Patreon, nutrientsurvival.com/FSS, like Full Spectrum Survival. Nutrient Survival has top of the line, high technology, food preservation techniques and machines that keep the nutrients in the food, hence the name. Once you have your rice, once you have your canned protein, now think about long-term storage you can put in your backpack and make an adventure. Make a go camping, rush it into your car and have 14 days worth of food in one bucket that they sell. Quality comes with a price. Make sure you use the code FSS10 if you use them to get your long-term food storage. Please, everyone, keep watching what is happening in the world around us, and please continue to stay safe.